Everybody, what's up? It's your girl Bree K. Jones here, deaf culture merger and deaf advocate. I wanted to make a short video about mental health since it is Mental Health Awareness Month. However, I want to put a small twist to it and talk about mental health in the deaf community. Oftentimes, we talk about, in general, as a larger population, talk about how important it is to understand mental health, how important it is to treat it and look at the different signs for mental illness and different types of mental illness, and to not be ashamed to come forward and get the help that you need to be able to live a mentally healthy and stable life. So when I was doing research about mental health in the deaf community, I found little research compared to if I was to search mental health in the black community or mental health among veterans or different things of that nature. When I narrowed it down specifically to mental health in the deaf community, the research in this area is not as large as research in other areas when it comes to mental health, and that is a problem. And so I wanted to make this short video. I have a couple of points here that I wanted to briefly talk about. I was reading an article on a website called healthbridges.info. So if you want to check out the website, go ahead and look at that. And it talked about deaf people and depression and anxiety and different things of that nature. Just like hearing people, deaf people suffer from depression too, if not more. The reason being why deaf people can suffer from depression more, and it can be a lot rougher for them than a hearing person, is because if you follow me, then you've heard me mention many times before that 90% of deaf people are born to hearing families. So these hearing families a lot of the time do not take out the time to learn American Sign Language. Therefore, if that deaf child is lucky enough to go to a residential school is the same as it's the same concept as hearing people going off to college and living at the dorm. So from K through 12, the deaf child goes off to a residential school for education to learn, because the hearing family doesn't really know the measures to take to educate their deaf child. They think that they're doing the best that they can with the knowledge that they have by sending them off to a residential school. Therefore, their friends at their residential school end up becoming their family and becoming that person that they bond with. And they're the family who they were born to. When they go back home, that's the family that they resent. That's the family that they have no emotional connection with. And, depression starts at the home. Not only does it start at the home, but it doesn't stop there. It continues in life. A deaf person going to a job interview, people thinking that they can't do their job on their own, or hearing people treating deaf people as if they're less than, as if they're unteachable. Deaf people go through their entire lives sometimes being called dumb, being called stupid, thinking that they can't do anything and they need everybody else to do everything for them. And so all of this started in the home as a young child, and you grow up as an adult with all of this, and that depression just continues. And so if they're clinically depressed, who do they go to? Are they going to go to a professional? 9 times out of 10, no. Reason being is because there's no trust. Would you go to somebody's house if you didn't trust them? No. So as the deaf person, where I'm constantly being told I don't equal up to hearing people, I don't have what it takes, I can't be a lawyer, I can't be a doctor because I can't think because I'm deaf. In fact, I'm not sure when Aristotle was born, a very long time ago. He was an old man. But Aristotle made a statement that if somebody was deaf, then they couldn't think. And since you can't think, you're unteachable. So people back in that time didn't even attempt to try to educate deaf people. In fact, education in the deaf community wasn't even a thing until the 1600s. There was a rule in Spain that said if you were wealthy or if you were rich, you could not pass down your inheritance to your children if they were not educated, if they didn't have education. And so there was this family who was very rich, who had lots of money, and they wanted to give their children their inheritance, but their children were deaf. And so the family found ways to educate their child so that they could have the family's inheritance. And that is actually how deaf education slowly but surely came into effect. from Spain in the 1600s. I'm pretty sure there's more research that goes far beyond with signing and deaf people, but that's really kind of like the first documented paper of deaf people beginning education and being able to be educated. So you go through your entire life as a deaf person with all these negative stereotypes against you, and and you not being looked at as a person. And so do you really think that I'm going to go to a hearing person who's a psychologist or a psychiatrist to get diagnosed about my clinical depression? There's no trust there. I don't trust you. For centuries you have tried to make me speak, and if I didn't speak according as well as what you thought I should speak, then I would get punished. I would get slapped. There was a time where they tried to erase American Sign Language and make all deaf people oral, and that's not their language. Signing is their language. So you have all these things that go into factor as to why deaf people will not go to a professional for help, because there's a lack of trust. And so I just think it's very important for professionals in the mental health area to do more research outside of them, outside of who they are. This world is very diverse, and even if you're not into mental health, everybody needs to take out time to research about people outside of their world. The world is much bigger than our world. The world is much bigger than America's customs and different things of that nature. And so a lot of times, if a deaf person does go to a professional, because the professional has no education or about deaf people, they don't understand the deaf way of life or deaf culture, a lot of times those mental health professionals will misdiagnose a deaf person. Deaf people, they American Sign Language is very different than English, and so when they sign backwards. So for example, in English I would say I'm going to the store now, but in American Sign Language I would say store now I go, or things like that. There's a lot of words in English that don't amount to, that aren't in American Sign Language. And so if a deaf person is to write, and a professional sees that and it's like, oh, well, they can't write, so they must have this disorder, and this disorder. Or if they hear that a deaf person talks weird with a deaf accent, then it's like, oh, well, they can't speak, and them speaking like that shows that they have mental retardation, and so they have this disorder, and this disorder. And so you have mental health professionals who are misdiagnosing deaf people, giving them disorders and conditions that they do not have, because they do not understand the culture. As a professional, a psychologist or a counselor, we know that we cannot treat everybody the same. We're not going to go to Korea and say everybody in Korea is clinically depressed because they don't smile. But that's their culture. Their culture is when you're in public, you don't show emotion, because it's rude to inflict your emotions on your fellow citizen. So if we have that mindset about other countries, we need to have that mindset about different cultures right here in our region. Deaf culture and hearing culture are completely opposite of one another. And in order to build that trust again, in order to really try to in order to diagnose them or try to walk through whatever their issues are, we need to first be educated on their culture and understand who they are as people, because it's not the same as who we are as hearing people, if that makes sense. So if you're a mental health specialist and you're watching this video, or if you're into mental health in any way, feel free to comment, and I would love to have a dialogue with you. Let's connect. Let's talk about how we can bridge this gap between the deaf community and mental health, so that there will be more equal treatment more equal treatment for the deaf and for the hearing. Okay, and thank you so much for watching this video. Go ahead, like, comment, share it, and I hope you enjoyed it. Have a blessed day, guys. Bye.